My parents forced me to pay $1,800 rent while my OnlyFans sister lived free. I secretly bought a house, and now they pay me to stay in theirs each month now. This happened about 18 months ago, and honestly, I'm still processing how absolutely nuclear everything went. Buckle up, because this gets completely wild, and the revenge is beyond satisfying. Quick background on me before we dive into this insanity. I'm 26 years old. I did 4 years in the Army as infantry and deployed twice to Afghanistan during some pretty intense periods. I came back home to Colorado Springs to help my family get back on their feet while I figured out my next career move. My dad had been struggling with reduced hours at his supervisor job at the local steel mill. Mom was working part-time at some overpriced boutique downtown. And my little sister Brittany was finding herself after dropping out of community college for the third freaking time. I was absolutely grinding my tail off, working construction during the day on a concrete crew doing commercial pours, probably the most back-breaking physical work you can imagine, but decent money at $28 per hour when you factor in overtime. Then I'd race across town to do overnight security shifts at this massive tech campus 3 nights per week for $18 per hour. Between both jobs, I was pulling in about $4,200 monthly before taxes, which isn't rich by any means, but pretty solid money, especially since I was living at home and constantly helping cover groceries and utilities without even being asked. Or so I thought. That's how things worked. Until one Thursday night in March, when my entire world got flipped completely upside down. I had just gotten home from what might have been the most brutal 12-hour concrete pour of my entire career, absolutely covered head to toe in dust and cement, shoulders aching so bad I could barely lift my arms. All I wanted in the world was a hot shower and some leftover pizza from the fridge. Instead, there was this official-looking envelope sitting on my dinner plate like some kind of court summons or eviction notice. David Rodriguez, typed in all capital letters, perfectly centered on expensive cream-colored paper. No return address, no personal handwriting, nothing that suggested this came from family. Dad was sitting across from me scrolling through his phone, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Mom was at the sink washing dishes with way too much focus and concentration, like she was trying to scrub the pattern off the plates. These should have been major warning signs that something bad was coming. I tore open the envelope with my dirty hands and nearly choked on my water when I saw what was inside. Monthly housing agreement. Effective April 1st, 2023. Monthly base rent, $1,200. Utilities and internet, $350. Food household contribution, $250. Total monthly payment, $1,800. Due date, 1st of each month. Late fee, $100 assessed after the 5th day of the month. At the very bottom, in bold letters, failure to comply with this agreement will result in a 30-day eviction notice being served. I sat there staring at this document for what felt like 10 full minutes, trying to process what I was actually seeing. My brain couldn't compute that my own parents had created an official rental agreement to charge me for living in my childhood bedroom. What the heck is this supposed to be? I finally managed to ask. Dad finally met my eyes with this completely serious business expression. It's time you started paying your fair share around here, son. You're 26 years old with steady employment and regular income. My fair share? I held up the paper like evidence in court. $1,800 per month for my childhood bedroom that still has Pokemon posters on the walls and a twin bed from middle school? Market rate for a private room in this area averages around $1,200 monthly, Mom said, still aggressively scrubbing the same plate she'd been working on for 5 minutes straight, plus utilities, internet, and food contributions. We're actually giving you a significant family discount when you think about it. I looked around the dinner table with growing disbelief and anger. So where exactly is Brittany's official rental agreement? Did that somehow get lost in the mail or something? Complete and total silence filled the entire room. Brittany is going through a very important transitional period in her life right now, Dad said carefully, like he'd rehearsed this response. She's working extremely hard on building her online business venture and establishing her brand. Our online business venture, right? What he really meant was she was making absolutely ridiculous amounts of money on OnlyFans and Instagram, posting revealing pictures and videos for lonely guys online while living completely rent-free in our parents' house. I'd personally witnessed the constant stream of designer shopping bags being delivered to our front door daily, the brand new BMW she'd bought with straight cash last month, the expensive professional ring lights and camera equipment that were permanently set up in her room, taking up half the space. Meanwhile, I was working 60-plus hours per week doing manual labor that was literally destroying my body joint by joint, and they wanted to charge me more money than most people pay for actual one-bedroom apartments in nice complexes with pools and gyms. "This is completely insane," I said, trying my absolute best to keep my voice level and controlled. "I've been helping with groceries, utilities, household expenses, basically everything around here without even being asked to contribute." "That was voluntary assistance that you chose to provide," Mom replied in this cold, business-like tone I'd never heard her use before. "This is an official rental arrangement with clear terms and expectations." But Brittany doesn't contribute anything at all. She orders expensive food delivery every single day, uses more electricity than the rest of us combined with all her equipment, and I've never seen her buy groceries or pay for anything. "Brittany's situation is completely different," Dad said firmly. "She's investing in her future and building something meaningful." That night, I lay in my twin bed, the exact same bed I'd slept in since 7th grade, staring at the ceiling and trying to process this complete betrayal from my own family. I'd served my country honorably for 4 years, worked my tail off every single day since coming home, never asked for handouts or special treatment, always contributed without being asked, and this is how my own parents decided to repay my loyalty, sacrifice, and dedication to helping them. I opened my laptop and created a new Excel spreadsheet, financial documentation, Rodriguez Family Exploitation Analysis.xlsx. If they wanted to play hardball business games with their own son and treat me like a tenant instead of family, I'd show them what real strategic planning and documentation looked like. The first month of paying that absolutely ridiculous extortion fee nearly destroyed me financially and emotionally. After taxes, that mandatory $1,800 monthly payment, and basic living expenses like gas and car insurance, I had maybe $600 left over for everything else in my life. I immediately started meal prepping nothing but rice and beans like I was back in basic training, completely stopped hanging out with my army buddies and old friends, and picked up literally every single overtime shift available at both jobs. But here's something the military teaches you really effectively. Always gather complete and accurate intelligence before making any kind of tactical moves against your enemy. So that's exactly what I started doing, with obsessive precision. I began systematically documenting absolutely everything happening in that house. Every single utility bill I could secretly photograph when nobody was looking, every grocery receipt when I bought food for the household, every time Brittany ordered $80 worth of premium sushi delivery through DoorDash, which was happening basically every single day, every Amazon package that arrived addressed to her, sometimes 4 to 5 packages per day, no exaggeration. What I discovered through this careful investigation made my blood pressure absolutely skyrocket. Our house was a pretty basic 1,400 square foot ranch-style home in a decent but definitely not luxury neighborhood. I spent countless hours researching comparable rental properties online. Entire 2-bedroom apartments with swimming pools, fitness centers, and modern appliances were going for $1,400 to $1,600 monthly in the same area. And my own parents were charging me $1,800 for a single bedroom with shared bathroom access and no privacy whatsoever. But that wasn't even close to the most infuriating part. Since I work construction, I know skilled tradesmen in basically every possible field. One of my KEO workers from the job site does HVAC installation and repair and had actually worked on multiple houses in our exact neighborhood over the past few years. During our lunch break one day, I casually asked him about typical utility costs for houses similar to ours. "Electric should be running you maybe $150 to $200 maximum during peak summer months. Gas probably around $100 during winter," he told me matter-of-factly. "Internet's probably another $80 to $90. "Why are you asking about this stuff?" I was supposedly paying $350 monthly for utilities and internet, for a modest house that should realistically cost around $300 total for everything combined. Then there was the whole food contribution scam they were running on me. I started keeping incredibly detailed records of what I actually consumed versus what Brittany was burning through on a daily basis. She was ordering expensive delivery food literally every single day, premium Thai food, high-end sushi, those fancy organic salad places that charge $18 for basically lettuce and vegetables, specialty coffee drinks that cost more than my entire lunch budget. The groceries that I personally purchased for the household would completely disappear overnight because she'd constantly invite her equally parasitic friends over to raid our refrigerator and pantry like they owned the place. I was paying $250 monthly for food contribution while she was easily consuming $600 plus worth of delivery fees alone every month, money that definitely wasn't coming from any kind of legitimate employment or her mysterious transitional period budget that my parents kept mentioning. The absolute breaking point came when I saw her Instagram story showing off a brand new $3,000 Louis Vuitton handbag, perfectly staged with professional lighting, and captioned, "Treating myself, #blessed, #entrepreneur, #bossbabe, #living my best life." That night, I did some serious internet detective work that probably wasn't completely legal and managed to find her OnlyFans account. Yeah, it was exactly as disturbing and gross as you'd imagine seeing your own sister like that. Using some basic mathematics and looking at her subscriber count, premium content prices, posting frequency, and visible tips, this girl was easily pulling in somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 per month. Let me repeat that so it really sinks in. My sister was making more money in one single month than I earned in 5 months of absolutely backbreaking physical construction work that was destroying my body, and I was the family member getting charged rent to live at home. I added a new spreadsheet tab labeled Brittany's estimated income versus actual household contributions analysis. The financial ratio made me physically sick to calculate. 2 months into this rental agreement nightmare, I discovered something that pushed me from frustrated anger into absolutely livid rage territory. I was checking my credit card statement online during a work break. I only used the card for genuine emergencies and always paid the full balance immediately. Then I noticed multiple charges I definitely didn't recognize, and I'm talking about a lot of unauthorized charges spread across several weeks. $340 at Sephora, $156 at Victoria's Secret, $89 at some boutique I'd never heard of. Multiple food delivery charges totaling over $400 for a single month, a $79 monthly subscription to some premium content creation platform, $67 at a nail salon, $156 for ring light pro studio equipment, all charged to my personal credit card, all completely unauthorized, all for stuff I would never buy in a million years. I confronted Brittany that weekend when she was in the kitchen, staging one of her elaborate smoothie bowl Instagram posts, complete with professional ring lighting and phone camera equipment consuming half the counter space. "Did you use my credit card for any purchases recently?" She didn't even glance up from arranging organic berries in perfect symmetrical patterns. "Yeah, like twice maybe, for emergency situations that couldn't wait." "Emergency situations?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the detailed statement. $340 at Sephora constituted an emergency? I needed professional-grade supplies for content creation activities. It's a legitimate business expense I'll write off on taxes, paid for with my money without my permission. That's called fraud. She finally looked up at me with this eye-rolling expression like I was being completely unreasonable. "God, David, you're being so overdramatic about every little thing. It's not like you can't afford these small amounts. You basically live here for free anyway, so what's the big deal?" For free, while paying them $1,800 every single month like clockwork? You absolutely cannot just use someone else's credit card without explicit permission. That's literally credit card fraud, which is a serious crime. You gave me the account number that one time when I needed money for textbooks when I was still in school. That was over a year ago for legitimate educational expenses that we discussed beforehand. She went back to her elaborate photography setup like our conversation was over. "Whatever, David. I'll pay you back when I get around to it and have some free time." When I tried discussing this theft situation with my parents later that evening, Dad's response was, "You two need to work out these sibling disputes between yourselves like adults. We're not getting involved in petty arguments over money." Sibling disputes? Like credit card fraud was just some minor disagreement over the TV remote? I spent that entire night going through 6 months of detailed credit card statements with a fine-tooth comb. The total amount of unauthorized charges came to over $2,800. Almost $3,000 of fraudulent purchases for makeup, expensive clothing, food delivery, subscription services, and various equipment for her business operations. But the real punch to the gut was discovering a $500 charge to some high-end photography studio downtown. When I reverse-searched the business address, it turned out to be a place that specialized in boudoir and artistic photography services. She had used my credit card to pay for professional photo shoots for her OnlyFans content. I was literally funding my own sister's adult content career while she lived completely rent-free, and I got financially bled dry every single month. That night, I opened a new browser window and started researching how to dispute fraudulent credit card charges, but then stopped myself. Filing official fraud disputes would create immediate problems and complications, potentially even legal ones that could blow up in my face. And I was starting to realize that creating immediate, obvious problems might not be the most effective long-term strategy. Instead, I opened new tabs and searched Asset Protection Strategies, LLC Formation Requirements, Colorado, Property Investment for Beginners. If my family absolutely insisted on treating me like a business transaction rather than their son, maybe it was time I started thinking and operating like a serious businessman who knew how to protect himself. I opened the business banking account on a Tuesday during my lunch break from the construction site. I drove 30 minutes across town to a credit union in a completely different area, tucked neatly between a pawn shop and a used car dealership, perfect location for maintaining complete privacy. The account representative was this older gentleman who looked like he'd seen every possible financial situation in his career and learned not to judge anything. When he asked about the business purpose, I kept it simple: property investments, financial consulting services, and asset management. I funded the initial account with my quarterly safety bonus from the construction company, $1,200 I'd earned for maintaining 0 workplace incidents during the previous 3-month period. I established the entire operation under Rodco Holdings LLC, named after my family's surname but generic enough to avoid drawing attention. All business correspondence went to a P.O. box I'd rented under the company name across town. That evening, I completely upgraded and expanded my spreadsheet documentation system into a comprehensive financial intelligence operation that would make my old Army intelligence buddies proud. The deeper I dug into my family's actual financial situation, the more disturbing the picture became. Dad had been lying about being on reduced hours. He was still working full-time at the steel mill, making approximately $3,800 monthly before taxes. Mom's part-time boutique job was pulling in a solid $2,200 per month. Their combined household income was comfortably middle class. So why were they constantly claiming to be struggling? Because Dad was dropping $300 plus monthly at the Indian casino, and Mom was sinking ridiculous amounts into MLM pyramid scheme products. And both parents were constantly buying expensive gifts and experiences for Brittany with no expectation of repayment. They weren't charging me rent because they needed help with legitimate bills. They were charging me rent because they were financially irresponsible and saw me as an easy, reliable ATM to fund their poor decisions and their daughter's lifestyle. Meanwhile, I started networking with experienced guys on the construction crews about real estate opportunities. Construction work gives you incredible inside information: which neighborhoods are getting major development, which properties have hidden issues, where smart money is moving. My foreman had been flipping houses successfully for over a decade. During lunch breaks, he started teaching me the fundamentals, market analysis, renovation cost estimation, and, most importantly, how to structure deals for maximum privacy and tax advantages. The key to everything in this business, he explained while we ate sandwiches in his truck, is having better information than the other party. When you know more than they do, you control the outcome. I took that advice very seriously and started applying it to my family situation. 4 months into the rental agreement nightmare, my foreman approached me with a game changer. "Hey, remember that house on Maple Street where we did the emergency foundation repair last month? The one with the cracked basement? The owners are going through an ugly divorce and both won out yesterday. It's going to public auction next week. Bank is motivated. Auction estimate $180,000 to $200,000. Cash buyers get priority. You interested in partnering up?" I'd been saving every dollar possible for months. With my VA loan eligibility and steady income, I actually qualified for excellent financing terms. By Thursday afternoon, Rodco Holdings LLC had pre-approval for $200,000 in investment property financing. Friday morning, my foreman and I stood on the courthouse steps. Bidding started at $160,000. When the hammer finally fell at $185,000, we owned our first investment property. The next 6 weeks were some of the hardest physical work I've ever done, but also the most satisfying. We transformed that house: new luxury vinyl flooring, fresh paint, LED lighting, fully renovated kitchen with granite and stainless steel. I did most of the labor myself to keep costs down. We listed it the day after completion. By Sunday night, we had 12 qualified applications. The couple we chose offered $2,400 monthly, $100 over asking, and moved in immediately. Positive cash flow from day one. But I still wasn't done with my family. I moved out on a Wednesday morning while everyone was away. I left my house key on the kitchen table with a single piece of paper. Effective immediately, I am terminating my rental agreement with this property. Final rent payment was processed March 1st as agreed. All utilities and services registered in my name will be disconnected within 48 hours. Future communication should be directed through Rodco Holdings LLC at P.O. Box 2847, Colorado Springs, Colorado. David Rodriguez. Cold, professional, no emotion, just like their original invoice. 2 weeks later, the phone call came. Dad sounded like he was on the verge of tears. David, we really need to talk. We received some very official letters today. I knew exactly which letters: IRS audit notification for Brittany, city code enforcement violations with substantial fines, HOA penalties totaling $15,000, homeowners insurance cancellation due to undisclosed commercial activity. I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop downtown that Saturday at 2 p.m. They looked like they'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I sat across from them in business casual attire with a thick folder beside my coffee. So, I said calmly, what seems to be the problem? Dad slid the stack of government letters across the table with shaking hands. Mom was on the verge of crying. Brittany looked like she hadn't slept in days. We don't understand what's happening, Mom said desperately. Everything hit us at once, like some kind of coordinated attack. Wow, this is pretty serious, I replied, flipping through the papers like I was seeing them for the first time. Federal tax issues, city violations, insurance cancellation. Can you help us figure this out? Maybe you could move back home, Mom suggested hopefully. We could adjust the rent to something more reasonable. What kind of adjustment? We could lower it to $1,500, Dad said quickly. Maybe even $1,200. I let the silence stretch until Brittany exploded. This is ridiculous, David. Just help us. Actually, I said calmly, opening my folder, that's a significant part of the problem. I spread out months of documentation, bank statements, screenshots, city ordinances, tax code explanations. Brittany, you owe approximately $78,000 in federal taxes plus penalties and interest. The city fines will total around $25,000 if you don't cease commercial operations immediately. And since everything was run out of Mom and Dad's house, they're considered potential accessories. The IRS can seize their assets too: house, cars, retirement accounts, everything. The color drained from Dad's face. What does that mean exactly? It means you're about to lose everything. Hope flickered in their eyes. Is there any solution? I pulled out the final set of documents. Rodco Holdings LLC is prepared to purchase your house for $220,000, about $30,000 under market value, but enough to pay off the existing mortgage and start covering the tax debt. You can then rent the property back from me for $2,200 monthly while you sort everything out. Brittany shuts down all content creation immediately and finds legitimate employment. All finances will be managed through Rodco to ensure compliance. This is insane, Brittany shouted. You want us to pay you rent to live in our own house? It won't be your house anymore, I replied calmly. You're about to lose it anyway, when the IRS places liens. This deal lets you stay, Dad asked quietly. How much rent? $2,200 monthly, current market rate, plus utilities. That's more than you were paying us. No, I corrected firmly. That's what you should have been charging someone who could actually afford it without stealing from family members. I stood up and gathered my paperwork. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, you're on your own with the IRS. They called me 6 hours later and accepted the entire offer without negotiation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they tried to keep you from being, then making them pay market rate to live in the world you built.